Aude is a department in south-central France named after the river Aude. The local council also calls the department Cathar Country. Aude is also a frequent feminine French given name in Francophone countries, deriving initially from Eudo.Aude, a wife of Bertrand, Duke of Aquitaine, and mother of Saint Hubertus's brother Eudo.Aude was the name of Roland's fiancée in the chansons. Geste. Geography. Location. Aude is located between the Mediterranean Sea and the Pyrenees Mountains. It is part of the current region of Languedoc-Roussillon Midi-Pyrénées. It is surrounded by the departments of Pyrénées-Orientales, Ariège, Haute-Garonne, Tarn, and Hérault, with the Golfe du Lion on the east. Natural regions. The countryside in this department falls into several natural regions: 1 Lauragais, 2 Montagne Noire, 3 Cabides, 4 Carcassonne, 5 Raises, 6 Quercorbes, 7 Pays de Sceaux, 8 Minevois, 9 Corbières, 10 Narbonnais. Landscapes. Each natural region of the Aude has its own particular landscape. In the east, lagoons or coastal lakes form a barrier between land and sea. These were formed by accumulated sediments brought down by the rivers Aude, Aube and Hérault. There are many such lakes of brackish water. This environment is demanding for flora and fauna, as it suffers from the rigors of sea, sun, dryness and floods. Halophile plants grow there, and it is also noted for animals such as the pink flamingo and white stilt. Inland to the east, shrub and scrub dominate the landscape of the drylands of the Aude and Corbières. This landscape is the result of forest clearance and was maintained by the raising of livestock. The flora is varied and typical, with many species of orchids. The Sioux countryside is dominated by beech groves and fir plantations up to the mountains. These forests are known for the mushrooms and have a rich flora and fauna, including the Pyrenean lily, the Euproctis moth and horsetail of the woods. To the north and west, the Black Mountain country is made up of forests of oak and beech. The Lauragais is a wooded landscape where grain farming has shaped the hills. There are bodies of water like the Lac de la Ganguise. Finally, the high valley of the Aude, otherwise called the Raises, consists of a riparian forest made of beech, alder, poplar or ash. It includes some peatlands that are very rare in southern France. Geology. The landscapes of Aude can be explained by geology. In the south there are sedimentary rocks folded during the formation of the Pyrenees. To the north and center, the sedimentary rocks are less folded. At the extreme east, near the Mediterranean, the rocks are carved by normal collapse faults which are due to the opening of the Golfe du Lion. The Black Mountain and Minevois to the north consist of schist and marble, forming the southern boundary of the Massif Central. These ancient rocks were formed over 300 million years ago and are formed by the formation of the Hercynian chain. The Montagne de l'Éric is an antiform fold in the shape of a vault and made of limestone. Climate. Aude is under the influence of a Mediterranean climate. The autumn is characterized by violent and short storms. The summer is often hot and dry, which is favorable to the culture of the vine and the olive trees. Yet, the department has several contrasts in climate. In the north, the Montagne Noire, and, in the south, the Pays de Sceaux, have a mountainous climate with temperatures sometimes very low in winter. In the west, the climate is under Aquitaine influence with heavier precipitation, while in the east the climate is purely Mediterranean. In the center, in the Limousin, Carcassonne and of Raises areas, the climate is known as intermediary with significant exposure to winds. The winds are often present in Aude. It is one of the windiest French department, with 300 to 350 days of wind per year. This phenomenon is mostly due to the variations in relief north and south, which create a kind of corridor. In the northwest blows the CERS, called tramontane in Provence, which is a ground wind. It is a dry, somewhat violent wind and cold in winter. In the southeast blows the Autumn, locally called the Marin, which is hot and wet and comes from the sea. These regular winds made it possible to install a park of windmills, as in the area of Avignon-et-Lauragais. Hydrography. The drainage system of Aude is dominated by its river of the same name. The river rises at the Roc-d'Aude and passes through the Matamala and Puy-Vellador dams on the Cap-Kier plateau at 1,500 meters, then crosses the department from south to north across Aix at Limoux and Quillan following the upper valley of the Aude. At Carcassonne, the river changes direction towards the Mediterranean Sea to the east where it empties near Fleury. History. Prehistory. Human traces have been found in the department from 1,500,000 BC in the form of hammers and work tools on the hill of Grézy at Carcassonne. The most interesting discovery, however, is that of the skull of Tortavel man made by Henry de Lumley in the commune of Tortavel in the Pyrénées-Orientales department. It is the oldest skull known in Europe. It dates from about 450,000 years BCE. It is likely that Tortavel man lived in all of this region. The Roman era. The Romans, led by the consul general Domitius Ahenobarbus, installed themselves first of all at Narbonne in 118 BC on the oppidum of Montlois, which became the provincial capital and a very active mercantile port. The position was strategically important since it stood at the crossroads of two Roman roads, the Via Aquitania and the Via Domitia, as well as by the sea near the mouth of the river Aude. Carcassonne became Latin in 30 BC with the creation of numerous grain farms. For almost 2 centuries, Aude enjoyed peace and strong economic growth. Barbarian invasions. The Visigoths invaded the area in 435 AD at a time when Flavius Aetius, the Roman senator, was busy suppressing the Bagauds, who were brigands and lawless types in central and northern Gaul. Roman authority was restored until 462. In 507, the victory of Clovis I at the Battle of Vouillé permitted him to conquer Toulouse and Aquitaine. However, he could not recover the Aude territory, which remained in the hands of the Visigoths, thanks to the help of the king of the Ostrogoths, whose troops defeated Clovis's son in 508. The region was then part of Septimania, so called because it was composed of 7 bishoprics that the Visigoth kings had established there: Elna, Agde, Narbonne, Lode of Béziers, Maglon, and Nîmes. Septimania covered the Aude but also the whole region of Languedoc-Roussillon. Middle Ages. In 817, Louis le Débonnaire detached Carcasses and Raises from Septimania to reunite them with the Marquisate of Toulouse and the Kingdom of Aquitaine. The first Count of Carcassonne was Olibe from the family of the Counts of Barcelona, who established himself in 819. Raises was another county that was formed by an Archbishop of Narbonne who had been chased from his town by the Saracens. He had transferred his episcopal see to Raises and had procured the honors of the feudal title for the area. Narbonne formed a third county. Thus, the Aude department was formed in the 9th century from 3 counties, Carcassonne, Raises and Narbonne. In 880, the county of Raises was united by marriage to that of Carcassonne, never to be separated. Catharism in Aude. In the 13th century, the regents or the development of Catharism, a dualistic Christian sect with similarities to Gnosticism. This religion was very quickly judged to be heretical by the Catholic Church. Faced with its growing strength in the counties of Carcassonne and Toulouse, Pope Innocent III in 1209 declared a crusade against the Albigensians. The barons of the north united to form an army under the command of Simon de Montfort, whereas the Count of Toulouse-Raymond Vire received absolution. The Count of Carcassonne confronted the army alone. The city of Carcassonne became the refuge of numerous Cathars. The Protestant crisis and economic expansion of the department. In 1561, religious troubles appeared at Carcassonne in the form of a Protestant crisis. Duke Henry I de Montmorency, the governor of the Languedoc, joined the reformed side in 1574. On the Catholic side, the Duke and Joyeuse became head of the Catholic League. Henry II de Montmorency was defeated at the Battle of Castelnaudary in September 1632 against the royal troops, then was condemned to death and executed at Toulouse. The creation of the department. The present department is one of the original 83 departments created by the Constituent Assembly during the French Revolution on 4 March 1790. It was created from part of the former province of Languedoc. Administrative divisions were amended by the Act of 28 Pluviose of Year 8, which created 4 arrondissements and reduced the number of cantons from 45 to 31. The 20th century, the Aude enjoyed strong wine production while grain farmers of Lauragais faced great difficulties. However, the department suffered from oversupply and a slump in sales of wine. In 1907 the crisis produced a winemakers' revolt. This led to the establishment of many winemaking cooperatives in Aude from 1909. Heraldry economy. Overview. Agriculture and fisheries. Aude is an agricultural area dominated by vineyards. In the east are the wines of Corbière and La Clape, in the center are Minervois and Côtes de Malpère, and in the south Limoux wine. In Lauragais grain is predominant, whereas in the Montagne Noire only sheep farming is possible. More recently there has been an increase in cultivation of olive trees for their oil. Port-la-Nouvelle is the biggest fishing port in the department, followed by Gruissan. In 1996 there were 127 vessels in Aude, including 75 in Port-la-Nouvelle and 52 in Gruissan. These vessels were as follows: fishing trawlers, 19 in Port-la-Nouvelle, tuna boats, 2 in Port-la-Nouvelle, small craft, 106, including 54 in Port-la-Nouvelle and 52 in Gruissan. Small craft are recreational boats such as dinghies with one man fishing a lake, motor launches with up to 3 people fishing in coastal waters. About 85% of small craft are intended for lake fishing, as in the Étang-de-Thou. Viticulture. Viticulture is the main economic activity of the department due to its rich and varied soils. It was the Greeks who established vineyards in Aude and the Romans who determined the rights of exploitation. The first vines were planted in Minervois in the 1st century. But the grapes and wines were not consumer products, self-sufficient for many years. Cereals and olive trees dominated the fertile plains of Aude. It was at the beginning of the 19th century that the wine industry developed in Aude and the rest of Languedoc-Roussillon. Wine then became a consumer product. Higher output was needed and vineyards replaced cereals on the plains. There was an initial period of prosperity to 1850 before phylloxera appeared towards 1870. At the end of the 19th century, Aude experienced a second period of prosperity, but there was a wine crisis triggered in 1901 because of overproduction, fraud, and slumping sales. It reached its peak during the winemakers' revolt in 1907. The wine growers regrouped themselves into winemaking cooperatives to prevent fraud and deception. In 1919, then in 1935, a law of AOC was adopted under the leadership of Jean Capus. The INAO was set up as a body to control the application of the new laws. After the Second World War, the vineyards were revitalized and the region saw a massive viticulture. The wine was produced in large large quantities and satisfied a very demanding population. The product was supplied in large quantities at very low prices. In 1970, the market evolved, replacing demand for quantity with demand for quality and causing a second wine crisis. Many events, negotiations, and attacks paralyzed the region and the economy. Émile Poit's and the CRS Joël Le Goff died at Montredon-des-Corbières on 4 March 1976 during this crisis. A large change in the Aude viticulture business started with the reorganization of the profession in the wine-growing region. Quality had to become the mark of wine from Aude. The rich and varied soil of Aude, together with abundant sunshine abounds, enables Aude to produce quality wines. Many wines emanate from the department, ranging in quality from table wines to AOCs, passing through Vin de Pays and VDQS. There are 7 main areas of production: Cabets AOC, Corbière AOC, Côte-Malpère AOC near Carcassonne, Coteaux du Languedoc on the plain of Narbonne, Fâteau AOC, Limoux wine, Minervois AOC. These areas produce different wines such as Blanquette de Limoux, Chardonnay and sparkling wine from Limoux, Le Clapet, Corbière, Fâteau, and Cabets. Industry and energy. Industrial activity is strong in the upper valley of the Aude. It has been especially prominent around Limoux since the late 19th century, and the Lafarge brick plant there is still booming. Since the 1970s, however, the Aude has seen a rapid decline in its traditional industries such as shoe and hat making. More recent activity is mostly centered around Narbonne, particularly dog facilities and oil depots in Port-la-Nouvelle. From 1889, the high valley of Aude became increasingly important in generating hydroelectric power. Aude was the first department in France to transmit such power from its plants at Alais-les-Bains and Quillan. Wikimestrade established the first electricity company in France, the Southern Power Transmission Company, in 1901. Its plant at Axat-Saint-Georges supplied the cities of Carcassonne and Narbonne at 20 kV. Today Aude is the leading department in France for the number of wind turbines installed. There are 113 in operation. They produce some 91 megawatts, which is the domestic electricity consumption of about 100,000 people. With the proliferation of these machines, the prefecture is seeking to establish with stakeholders a charter of good conduct for wind turbines. Crafts are very well represented in Aude with 14.6% of the population involved. Some 5,400 businesses operating in 250 craft professions achieved in the late 1990s an annual turnover of 3 billion francs. Demography. The inhabitants of Aude are known as Audois. The 1990 census confirmed a growth in population since the 1960s with about 700 people more per year. This growth is explained by the return of pensioners aged over 60 years to the place of origin and to immigration from the Mediterranean basin. At the last census, the population of Aude represented 0.5% of the French population and 14.1% of the population of Languedoc-Roussillon. It is predominantly rural with a density of 48 inhabitants per square kilometre, which is slightly less than half the national average. The two main cities, Carcassonne and Narbonne, are medium-sized cities comprising only 1/3 of the inhabitants of the department. In 2009, the department had 353,980 inhabitants. The evolution of the number of inhabitants is known through the population censuses conducted in the department since 1791. For the 21st century, a census of municipalities with fewer than 10,000 inhabitants is held every 5 years. Unlike larger towns that have a sample survey every year, population change sources. Historical data of Aude department on the SPLAF website LDHEHESS Cassini until 1962, INSEE database from 1968. Transport. 2 major roads cross the Aude. From west to east, the A61 autoroute connects Narbonne and Toulouse via Carcassonne. From north to south, following the Mediterranean coast, the A9 autoroute links Montpellier with Spain. The rail network follows the same route as the road network. It is a low-speed system, but a project is underway to build a fast line to Spain as part of the Trans-European rail network. Finally, Aude is crossed by the Canal du Midi, which is a major waterway that allows tourists to pass from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. It comes into the west of Aude at Seuil de Nores, then joins the Mediterranean at Sète. Politics. The people of Aude expressed royalist opinions until the end of the Bourbon Restoration. In 1830, Republican ideas began to develop and made this department a bastion of the left. This growth is symbolized by 2 men, Armand Barbes and Théophile Marcoux. Armand Barbes is a symbol of the struggle for a social democratic republic. It was in Aude that François Mitterrand had his highest score in the 1981 presidential election with just over 63% of the vote. Only affluent coastal areas surrounding Narbonne and the department's prefecture, Carcassonne, give consideration to the right. The president of the General Council is Marcel Reynaud of the Socialist Party. Education. Aude department in 2008 had 364 primary schools serving 30,771 students. Between 2000 and 2007, primary school enrollment steadily increased from 28,331 students to 30,491 students at secondary level. The department had 31 colleges and 17 public and private high schools for about 23,000 students in 2006. Education in Aude now includes teaching in the Occitan language. Culture, festivals and traditions. The Carnival of Limoux is an Aude festival which takes place over a period of 10 weeks or more. This is one of the longest carnivals in the world. It takes place in the town of Limoux on the Place de la République every weekend from mid-January to the end of March. It is characterized by bands in Pierrot costumes accompanied by musicians. In the region around Limoux, a major celebration of gastronomy known as Toques Cloches is organized by the wine growers from Sierra d'Arcas takes place over the weekend of Palm Sunday. It permits the sale of a large quantity of wine in order to enhance local patronage. Sport. Aude is the land of rugby league with the teams of Limoux, Carcassonne and Lesignan among the elite. Orbit was a famous rugby league player who played with his Carcassonne. There are numerous amateur rugby league clubs dotted all over the area. Rugby union is also played in Aude. It appeared early in the 20th century and the U.S. Quillant Club dominated in the late 1920s. Jean Burrell won the title in 1929 against Lesignan. After the Second World War, the Carcassonne team took the lead. Recently, however, rugby union in the Aude has faced an uphill struggle in a sport that has become both globalized and more professional. The Narbonne team has nevertheless managed to develop in the Pro D2 Championship. Every 15th of August, in Quillan, an international cycling competition takes place. This is the oldest of such contests in France. The Tour de l'Aude is one of the most important female cycling events in the calendar. It generally takes place in May. Gastronomie frégénite, a traditional type of fricassee of pork from Corbière, can be found throughout the department. It is made from pork and pig's liver with a local variety of white beans flavored with garrigue herbs. On the coast, eel stew is a dish of choice. Finally, the cassoulet of Castelnaudry, made from white beans and sausage, is a typical dish of the Lauragais. Other specialties exist such as oysters from Gruissan and Luc 8. Olive oil is also very widespread in the Aude and is a speciality of Bise Minevois. Cartagena is a liqueur marketed by some manufacturers. Finally, the Blanquette de Limoux is a sparkling white wine popular in the department whose origin dates back to the 16th century. The Occitan language Occitan is spoken in the Aude in its Languedoc variant. The Occitan language emerged during the High Middle Ages from the Latin used in the south of Gaul. The name of the department is also Aude in Occitan. In Aude, Occitan was rarely used in writing before the 11th century. However, several poets and troubadours such as Raymond de Miraval used language based on court love in the 12th and 13th centuries. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Occitan was used to draw up local administrative documents. In the 16th century, Occitan was used less in comparison with Royal French, whose use was made compulsory by the Edict of Villers-Cotterêts in 1539. However, it survived very well among the people until the 19th century, when public schools were established with teaching solely in French. In the 1970s and 1980s, new demands were made for the dignity of the language and for its teaching. Occitan speech reached a wider audience and singers like Claudie Marty, Mans de Brioche, and Lissos promoted its use.